everyone, my name is Kayla and welcome back for another week of Monster Munchies. So this week is a really exciting one for me. The theme this week is Geekery. I am a big fan of many things nerdy, fantasy books, video games, you name it. But I did have a hard time trying to figure out what I was going to make this week. I have many Harry Potter, Doctor Who, lots of different cookbooks with a lot of different recipes. But since I made brownies yesterday for the Super Bowl, I wanted to make something savory. And I decided that since I've been playing a whole lot of Skyrim VR lately, that I would try to make something from that game. And there is a part of that game where you can bake. So today I'm going to be making chicken dumplings from Skyrim. The recipe in-game for chicken dumplings calls for 1 salt pile, 1 sack of flour, 1 chicken breast, 1 garlic, and 1 leek. Now while that cuts it in the game, I don't think that's actually going to cut it today. So I'm going to have to add a few more ingredients and improvise a little. So let's go. So for my filling, I'm going to start off melting about a tablespoon of butter in a pan. This is going to be an interesting episode. I'm actually cooking, it's dinner time, it's not a weekend. And I'm totally winging it on this recipe too, not gonna lie. So enjoy the ride. Now, in the Skyrim game, the chicken dumplings look kind of like an apple turnover. I don't really know who designed this. I don't know if video game designers really know too much about baking and what's a dumpling. Now when I hear the word dumpling, I'm usually thinking like, you know, gyoza pot stickers. And this is clearly not one of those. So my interpretation of it is more like a hand pie. The dough that I'm doing is a suet crust, which is traditionally used in a lot of British pastries. And I'll explain more about that when I actually start making the dough. But I wanted it to be sturdy because, you know, in Skyrim you're riding around on horseback, fighting things. You're not going to want like delicate little pastry dumplings riding around in your bag. You're going to want something like hearty and strong that won't get smushed. So that's what I'm going for. That's my interpretation of these chicken dumplings, and hopefully they will turn out well. So once my butter is melted and nice and hot, I have this on medium heat, by the way, I'm going to add, I have 1 carrot, 1 stalk of celery, and my 1 leek chopped up in here. I'm going to add that and cook it until they're slightly softened. I'm going to add some salt and pepper in with those guys too. So once your vegetables are well on their way to being softened, I'm going to add in the chicken. I have what I think is about a pound. I bought split chicken breasts, so I ended up cutting them off the bone by myself just because it's way cheaper to buy chicken that way. So it was 2 split chicken breasts. I ended up with this much chicken. I think it's about a pound. And I've seasoned it with salt and pepper. So I'm going to put it into the pan and let it brown. The nice thing about cooking dinner on a weekday night rather than baking on a weekend morning is I get to enjoy a nice glass of wine as I bake. And this one's really good. My father-in-law made it, which was really cool. So now my chicken is cooked most of the way through. It doesn't have to be cooked all the way because once we fill the pastries, they're going to bake in the oven for a while, and that'll give the chicken some time to catch up. So next I'm going to add in my aromatics. In this little bowl I have 2 cloves of garlic, a few sprigs of thyme, and 2 or 3 sage leaves chopped up. So I'm going to plop those in here and cook until it's nice and fragrant. I'm also gonna add a little bit of mace to here, which is the outer part of nutmeg, and it's in a lot of like old-fashioned pie recipes, so it gives it that old-fashioned feel, I guess. I like it. So I'm going to cook that for a minute or so until the garlic's nice and fragrant. Once that's smelling really good, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of flour. And I'm going to cook that, stirring it constantly for about a minute so the flour cooks through. And once that's cooked, I'm going to add a little bit of chicken broth. And I'm going to scrape the bottom of the pan here so I get all the little browned chicken bits and flour bits up. And then I'm going to bring the liquid to a boil and cook until it's nice and thick. I'm also going to add a splash of milk in for some extra creaminess in the gravy. Just a couple tablespoons or so. And I'm gonna finish the sauce up with about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard. Yeah, that's good. And once that forms into a nice thick gravy, you can take it off the heat and put it to the side while we make our pastry dough. And now it's time to make the pastry. Let's go. So I have in this bowl 350 grams of self-raising flour, and I'm going to add to that about a teaspoon of salt and 60 grams of cubed up into small pieces frozen butter, along with 80 grams of suet. And suet, you probably won't be able to get a hold of it if you're in the United States. It's the fat from around beef kidneys, and it's really good for pastry. But if you don't have that, you can probably use shortening, maybe use all butter. I don't know how it'll work. Can't make any promises, but it's worth a shot. So I'm gonna work the fat into the dough with my fingertips until I get a nice crumbly texture. Trying not to work it too much because you don't want the fat to melt into the flour. You want it to stay nice and solid. So once you've rubbed all your butter and suet into the flour, you should have a nice coarse crumbly mixture. You can also do this in the food processor. I didn't because mine is still dirty from yesterday when I shredded up a pound of raw beef suet. Once that's all nice and crumbled up, I'm going to add an egg and mix that up. Ooh, egg. Just gonna mix it with one hand so I don't get both of them all nasty and eggy. When the egg is mixed in, I also have 150 milliliters of cold water that I'm going to add in a little bit at a time until my dough comes together. Oops. And once my dough mostly has come together, I'm gonna turn it out onto the counter and knead it for a couple minutes. I know some of you are probably cringing because normally you would never knead a pastry dough, but because we want these to be kind of strong and stand up to the filling and all that riding around on horseback we do in Skyrim, we want it to be a strong dough. It won't get tough, but it will get strong. So once your dough has come together into a nice smooth ball, we're going to roll it out and shape our dumplings. Also, by the way, if you haven't preset your oven to about 400 degrees Fahrenheit, you should do that now. Preferably do it before you knead the dough so you don't get dough fingerprints all over your oven. So I'm going to divide this dough into 4 pieces. So I have divided my dough into 4 balls. I'm going to work on them one at a time to roll them into a square kind of shape to get the kind of fold on the dumpling that I'm looking for. So once you have a square rolled out, you want it on the thicker side, maybe like, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch. The recipe said a centimeter, which is less than 1/2 inch, but more than 1/4 inch. So something like that. I have my square. I should probably get out a baking sheet to put these on in a second. Hooray for being organized. So I'm going to spoon some filling in the middle. And it's okay for these to be stuffed. I don't know if I'm going to have enough filling. And to make the dumpling shape that you see in the game, I'm going to fold up the corners to meet each other in the middle to make that nice little packet. And then I'm gonna crimp the edges together. This is gonna be an ugly dumpling. And then I'm gonna take my ugly little dumpling and put it on my baking sheet. And repeat with the rest of these guys. So I have all my dumplings on the baking sheet and ready to go. They are not very attractive. Hopefully the oven will be kind to them. I left some little holes in the top so they can steam and not blow up on me. And I'm gonna stick them in the oven for 45 minutes or until the pastry is nice and golden and cooked through. So let's see what they look like when they come out. So I just took these out of the oven. As you can see, most of them separated, so they're more like open-faced dumplings instead of proper chicken dumplings. They do smell really good, however, so I'm gonna plate one up and let you guys see a close-up. Ooh. So here is the dumpling, still steaming. If you look at it from like this way, it kind of looks the way it's supposed to be, but it did separate. So let's open this guy up and see what the inside's like. So I can already tell that the pastry is really flaky. And it's pretty biscuity, I think because the self-raising flour. So that's the inside. And this is quite the tasty little dumpling, even though visually it doesn't have the impact I wanted it to. The pastry is like beautifully flaky. The chicken filling is creamy and tasty. And the cat's already sitting right over there waiting for his taste. Hey Felix. So let's hoist Mr. Fatty up. Chicken is one of his favorite. Felix, do you want chicken? I think Felix is a little more comfortable on the floor. So we're gonna get a little bit of chicken filling. He's deciding. Does it smell good? And it looks like he likes it. So thanks for watching, everyone. I hope your baking quests are successful, and we will see you next week. Bye! And here he is, begging at the dinner table. Are you camera shy?